I tried to wear what I thought a homunculus might wear, so maybe now they'll invite me to their pool party. Hello, thank you for watching. This is going to be a little diary, a little walkthrough of my needle felted gluttony project. I'm not a huge fan of tutorials, so don't really think of it as that. Just think of it as this is a thing I did, and I'm going to show you the things I did to make it and the thought I put into making it. So let's go ahead and skip forward to that first segment.
Fullmetal Alchemist. Fullmetal Alchemist?
So felters use something called core wool, and core wool is usually a kind of wool that is less processed and undyed, and what it does is it felts a little bit faster so that you can make your sculpture, and then when you want to add the color, you just have the more expensive wool and all you have to do is cover it. I used to not use core wool because, I don't know, well actually I didn't know about it. But once I started using it, it became a lot more helpful because not only does it help me make my projects faster, sculpting the whole thing in white makes it easier to like block out your sculpture and to kind of understand what you're doing. When you felt starting with colors, you sort of block in what you're doing early on and it becomes difficult to make changes. A needle felting group that I'm in was talking about alternatives to core wool, one of which would be polyfill. And polyfill is that batting that you put in like quilts, and that is what I have been using to make Gluttony and my last few sculptures, and it's changed me, it's changed my life. So I'm filming this in stages, and we have Gluttony, we have his body. I'm actually working on his head right now, and I think I'm going to make it a little bit bigger, and then I'm going to be filling in kind of the gap in the back of his neck. But that's what we have right now. I have his arms and legs held on with pins. And one of the reasons I decided to make Gluttony is because he's round. Like, that's it. He's just round. And, you know, things like the hands and the arms and the proportions are like where the challenge is. But as far as his shape is, he's round. And his clothes, he's just wearing like a skin-tight Hot Topic tank top, as is customary. So I think I'm actually really enjoyed making him, even though he's something like I've never made before. But to make him, I kind of just started with a ball, and then I made another ball and put that on top. And then I started working on the arms and legs, and I have a lot of references of him, so I noticed that he has shoulders, but not really. So I kind of put this cone on top, and then the head will go there, and I'll fill that in and make his head rounder as it gets on. A lot of people, when they felt, will wear thimbles, rubber thimbles, and that's to protect your hand since you're working with needles and you don't want to poke yourself. I hate wearing them, so I never do. But for the sake of this video, I've decided to wear some gloves. Does Roy have the symbol on both his gloves? I do not know. I do not stand him for some reason. Anyway, so needle felting is pretty simple, but it can also potentially be very complex, which is something I like about it. Basically, all you do is you poke. And you poke at your wool or your polyfill with different sized needles that have little notches on them. And that's kind of something I didn't know about when I first started. Like, I looked at a lot of tutorials and they just say, get a felting needle and poke. But the needles actually have different, you can't see it here. The needles have different kinds of tips, like some of them will be spiral, some of them will be a triangle. And that changes how they felt, which is incredibly helpful. And getting a packet of variety needles helped me immensely. I actually broke my best needle, so this project is taking me a little bit longer than I would like, but that's okay. It's just me and the Gluttony. We're just pals now. Needle felting is also, doesn't seem to be a craft that a lot of people know about, or it's not very popular, at least in the US. So when people see what you've created, they'll be impressed more easily because it's something that they've never heard of. So right now I am just working on his head and I am building it up. The sculpting is the part that takes most mental energy from me. So I was trying to film myself so that I could like fast forward through it and make it look like I'm a really cool crafter. But that was not working out. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just,
Around me are familiar faces.
I'm just working on him a little bit, and then through the magic of television, I'm going to fast forward to when I have him completely sculpted, and then I will cover him in the color. My last point that I'll make in this section about needle felting is that it is free ASMR. I don't know how well you can hear this, but it's amazing. I actually don't feel anything from the ASMR sounds, so this is wasted on me, but if it wasn't, I would probably like this craft even more.
Fullmetal Alchemist. Fullmetal Alchemist.
It's been a couple days since our last segment, so I went ahead and livened the place up a bit. I also can't find the shirt I was wearing last time, but that's fine. But you might still be wondering, why Gluttony? And the real answer is, my favorite Fullmetal Alchemist character is Pride. So naturally, I made this custom Nendoroid doll of him.
Look at it! Look at it! Look at it! I want all of you to...
And as any Fullmetal Alchemist fan would know, Pride and Gluttony are brothers, and they get along very well, and that is why I want to have them together in my home. But seriously, I made Gluttony so that he could look cool next to Pride, so that he could have a friend. I just thought it would be cool to have another homunculus. And Nendoroids have a cutesy chibi proportion, so overall I wanted Gluttony to be more on the cute side. And for doing that, I actually looked at a lot of pictures of Baymax from Big Hero 6 because I realized that they have the same proportions. Overall, though, whenever I make something, I just have a huge gallery on my phone of pictures that I can constantly reference to make sure I get proportions right in the face and the body, blah, 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 blah. Another challenge was getting him to scale next to Pride. Typically with Nendoroids, like, they're kind of all the same height, so it doesn't really matter. But I just wanted Gluttony to be like a big friend. A friend. I just wanted Gluttony to be a big presence next to him. So I found some pictures of them side by side, tried to get that right. And as I was making Gluttony, I was constantly like comparing the two of them together. And I think I did pretty well on the size, so I am happy about that. Other thing I did was, Nendoroid dolls are very posable. And honestly, I really like to take pictures of things sitting next to each other. So I decided to have Gluttony's limbs be posable, and I'm going to do that by, right now they're just held on with pins, but I'm going to do that by doing a little like string joint. It's something that like teddy bears have. I've actually never done it before, but it doesn't seem too hard. But I'm going to have a little string joint so that he's able to move his arms and legs and sit down and do all that kind of fun stuff. But overall, I am quite happy with the sculpt. Anyway, my final step will be to add the details like his tattoos, his eyes, and maybe beef him up in the belly area a little bit. This ended up being a rather short segment. Part of it was because I viewed this part as a step, you know, adding the color, getting ready for the details, and then the details themselves are the final step. But also I just kind of wanted to do the thing again. So we're going to do the thing again, and then we'll pick up again in the last segment, the details.
Fullmetal Alchemist. Fullmetal Alchemist.
Welcome to the live felting part, where I'll just be tightening up some of the details on Gluttony. And while I do that, I would like to talk about my time as a fan of Fullmetal Alchemist. So, I've been a fan since I was a teenager in middle school. I was very into it, in a way that you only are when you're a teenager in middle school. In other words, I'm quite embarrassed by how much I liked it, but it's a good series, and I am currently in an FMA renaissance, where I've revisited it. It's been long enough, and I'm really noticing all of these things that I never really noticed before. I'm just, with my new adult brain, I'm able to appreciate it a lot more, and I really like that. So I watched 03 first, then I read the manga, then I watched Brotherhood as it was airing. And I had this impression of the homunculi. I haven't had it in me to revisit 03, so I can't say if the original anime especially perpetuated this, but I thought of them as very monstrous and very menacing. Gluttony especially. He's big and he's ugly and he eats people. He's scary. He even turns into this big flesh creature, which is in fact the worst thing I've ever seen. And before I forget about this, I do remember the sob stories that they gave the homunculi. And I actually think that if 03 was not connected to FMA, like if the story was its own independent anime, that I would have actually liked it a lot. Because in 03, the homunculi are created from performing human transmutation and a sad replica of the person who you were trying to transmute. So they have the memories from their old lives, but they aren't the same person. And they sort of live this tortured existence.
私は人間じゃない。私は誰？あなたたちがいなくなってくれなきゃ、私はこの記憶に苦しめられる。
And I am super into that. I love me a sad artificial human. But the homunculi, my homunculi, are cool. And they have dignity. I've started to really like Lust. To me, she embodies that cool dignity the most. She could have very easily been eye candy. And she admittedly has less development than some of the boys, since when she exits the story, the homunculi are still somewhat mysterious. But I honestly view that as a positive for her. She just gets to be cool. Her death scene is super cool. She just accepted defeat and then faded away. She got a cool final line. I know at one point they say that she went out with her pride as a homunculus intact, which makes it funny when you compare how the one named Lust went out.
I love how cold and focused your eyes are. I look forward to the day when those eyes will be wide with agony.
To how the one named Pride went out.
Stop this! Please stop!
Speaking of Pride, he was my launching point to liking the rest. To me, by being Father's #1 lackey, Pride embodies what the homunculi are as a whole. And Ed actually puts it quite well after he smashes Pride's head open like a piñata.
We should just be a good boy like you and do everything his father tells him, is that it? Why are you so eager to be his willing lapdog? He's wearing you ragged, breaking you down, and he doesn't even care.
The homunculi are villains, but they aren't masterminds. They're ultimately pawns. And I like the juxtaposition between, boy, are you evil, and, you're kind of pathetic. Like, the more we learn about them, it becomes clear that they're just sad inside. Greed wants to have friends. Envy is secretly jealous of humans. Pride was bewildered when someone protected him.
They ask you how you are, and you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
And Wrath just seems tired. But at the same time, they all did horrible things and they own up to them. Wrath, for instance, who absolutely did not choose this life, still said he's become something better than a human and clearly has no regrets for anything he's done. This is where my greater understanding of Gluttony comes in. The first time I remember seeing Gluttony as more than a monster was when Al asks Gluttony to take him to Father, and he says, okay, and I thought, oh, he's not very smart. And then I slowly began to put the pieces together, and it became abundantly clear that Gluttony is a baby. And I'm not saying he's literally a baby, but he's far more baby-like than I ever noticed. Looking at the manga art also did a lot in helping me understand the homunculi better. When I was first researching Pride, I was looking at the anime only. And I noticed a lot of scenes where he's just standing around looking scary. So I went to the manga and I found a much wider range of expression. To me, manga Pride feels less demonic, and he has a lot of bratty kid energy. And at first I thought that this was just him. And, you know, he's not in the story as much as the others, so I was like, okay, that makes sense. But then I realized it's the same for Gluttony, who is depicted far more menacingly in a lot of scenes in the anime. And I don't want to bash Brotherhood. When I was younger, I was very obnoxious about adaptations. Like, oh, they took that out of the book. It's bad. And I try not to be that way so much anymore because manga and anime are different mediums. And you have a lot more working for you in an anime, like music, voices, even color. So something like Gluttony's adorable face could be immersion breaking in a very serious scene. But still, so if you were to go back to me, who was a teenager, I guess you could, I mean, I do like the color black, so maybe it was just written in the stars that I would end up standing all 7 of the homunculi. But who would have thought that it would come to this, and that I would be so much happier.
Fullmetal Alchemist. Fullmetal Alchemist.
And here Gluttony is all finished. Overall, he was a really fun, big project to do. You can see that I went for the cuter look on his face, which I really like, and I think for what he is, he's quite darling. As for the threaded joints, so in the end, I think these would be better suited to a stuffed animal or a thinner project. To do them, you have to run a thread through the body and then knot it at the joints. And that was a problem because Gluttony is so dense and thick. So I ended up putting little pins in his arms, and those are just an extra thing keeping it on there. And if they do come out, I can just fix it because I made Gluttony for myself. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, it would mean a lot if you could like and subscribe. I also have social media where you can follow me. My Twitter is the best place for random thoughts, video updates, general things. Then I have my toy Instagram, which is where I update with my needle felts and my Nendoroid doll collection. And I'm on TikTok, where I like to fool around. Then last is my Etsy shop, where I sometimes list creations that go up for adoption. You can also contact me there about commissions if that's something you are interested in. So once again, thank you for watching. Stick around for the credits, and good night. Dun 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 dun.